began to walk out of his room and into the bustling main room of the castle. Some faces familiar to him, yet some new. He was an introvert, so being here with so many people freaked the snail out, but he knew he had to pull through. Besides, Dedede and everyone pulled this all off in such a short time, just because he was moving back into town. Sure, the anxiety of making a fool of himself was there, but he decided to ignore it, and try to have a nice time. He deserved it after all. The first to greet him was none other than the pink blob himself, who was wearing a small light yellow bow tie.
Playa, playa!
He hopped up and down in excitement. All the food and people around must have been making him excited.
You seem pretty happy, Kirby. Though, you always are, so no surprises here.
Kirby responded in a happy nod. He began to drag Escargoon closer to the main area rather than the sidelines. This, of course, made Escargoon nervous, but Kirby gave him a tight, reassuring grip in his hand. That made it okay.
Ah, there you are, Escargoon. I was worried you were not going to make it for a little bit there.
Bandana D said jokingly as he sat at the table. Escargoon laughed nervously.
I almost didn't.
He said, holding his own shoulder.
Nonsense. You made it just in time. No need to worry about it, Escargoon.
Megalor said as he flew up to the table they were all sitting on and sat down. Escargoon sat down as well, gently lifting Kirby into a seat near him.
I guess so.
Escargoon said shyly, wanting to make himself smaller by the moment. Talking to two people alone was already a lot for him to take.
Well, it is good to have you back in Dreamland, Escargoon.
Meta Knight said as he appeared as if from nowhere in a seat next to Megalor. Escargoon looked surprised at Meta Knight's sudden appearance. He had forgotten how he could do that.
Yes, Meta Knight. I should have known you'd want to make an entrance.
Megalor spoke as he turned to the knight.
Not an entrance, just a quick way of transportation.
Meta Knight spoke matter-of-factly.
But of course.
Megalor nodded in agreement to the knight's statement. Escargoon was having trouble finding words to say despite being the focus of the party. He was happy to see some of the people he hadn't seen in years, but he was still crazy nervous.
Anyways, how have y'all been since I left?
Escargoon spouted out, not being quite sure what else would be a good conversation starter.
We, for the most part, have been fine. Much has changed, yet much has stayed the same. And you?
Meta Knight asked in a polite manner. Escargoon smiled weakly.
It has been okay, to say the least. Not as interesting as living here, that's for sure.
Bandana spoke up once more.
Well, surely you learned tons while you were away, but I'm sure you really missed home as well.
Escargoon nodded, his weak smile staying on his face. King Dedede, after quite some time of not speaking, lost in his own thoughts, decided to say something after seeing how Escargoon was clearly feeling.
But there's no reason to miss home now, 'cause, well, you're here.
Dedede empathized. Escargoon's weak smile turned into a more normal smile as he looked up to Dedede.
You're right. It's just gonna take some time to get used to it is all.
Escargoon answered, looking like he was feeling better.
Yeah, it's great that he's back and everything. Not that I know him. Anyway, someone pass the cupcakes?
A pink orb wearing a jester hat from across the table spoke.
Now, Marks, where are your manners? Our new companion just came back from a long trip. You should at least try to be a little nicer.
Megalor scolded as he looked at Marks from across the table. Escargoon had no clue who the guy was, but it was obvious he wasn't exactly a nice person.
It would be nicer if I could have a cupcake, but no arms, so I'm limited.
Marks mocked in his sarcastic way. Dedede shot Marks a glare before Kirby reached over the table to hand Marks one of the cupcakes.
Ah, thank you, Kirby. See, this is the real best guy over here.
Marks grinned as he took a bite of the treat. Kirby just smiled and responded as he always would.
Fire!
Escargoon smiled at Kirby's optimism. It was nice to see, even when times were rough, Kirby can stay happy. Escargoon had only wished he could be that good with people. Everyone proceeded to start talking again with one another. Escargoon stayed somewhat quiet. To Escargoon's surprise, so did Dedede. He looked like he was in really deep thought once more. It was odd for him to be acting this way. Maybe it was just him trying to block all the so-called commoners out or something. Yeah, that was it. He didn't want to bother Dedede. Despite him wanting to talk to him more, Escargoon got off the table and began to look around to see who else was at the party. Who knew what else or who else he might walk into?